Hello, hello. What's going on? This is Introvert Boricua. I know that it's late. Just gonna be putting up a quick video. And this one is 3 things that people believe that aren't in the Bible. So we're gonna get right to it. This is a quick one. It's kind of late. I need to get to bed, but it's just that I wanted to do this before the end of Good Friday because those has to do with religion. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble. But I wanted to make this one, uh, this quick video. Okay, 3 misconceptions, I should say, 3 misconceptions about the Bible. Now, this one, those involves what I was talking about in my previous video, in which I encountered a contradiction right off the bat when I started reading. Because it was gonna be about something else. I was gonna be addressing something else, partially what I'm gonna be talking about right now, but then I stopped and I wanted to point that out. Now that got me in a little trouble. It got me a little bit of criticism. That's okay. That's okay. I'll take it. Um, but looking at it objectively, we do have a contradiction between the first 2 chapters of Genesis. But I'm gonna be going over those same 2 chapters of Genesis, because I'm gonna give it some grace. I'm gonna give it grace, and I'm gonna say, okay, let's say that the first chapter is valid and the second chapter is valid too. Let's say that both chapters are valid. So the question will be, how do I reconcile the 2 chapters? Because one, as I said in my previous video, is a story of creation. It's one story about creation, including the creation of humankind. But it doesn't mention anything about Adam and Eve, who are supposed to be the first man and the first woman. Now, if we go to the second chapter, is a story of creation, but it's a different story. It's like someone else wrote the chapter, like a different person wrote the chapter, but they threw that into. In the first chapter, we are told in which day God made the earth and the plant and the trees and the vegetation. That was on the third day. I'm gonna see if I can show it real quick. Let's see. Let's see. God said, "Let there put forth vegetation, plants yielded seed and fruit, trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. There brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. So let's take it that it was the third day, according to this. But when we come, just a review, quick review, that in the second chapter, it says, "In the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens," before, supposedly, this must have been like what? Before the third day, or in the second day? This doesn't say. Okay. In the day that God made the earth and the heavens. Made the earth and the heavens, but there were no plants. So when no plants of the field was yet in the air, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up. So we're doing a little rewind. I should have a rewind sound effect for that. And for the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no one to till the ground. Again, the whole thing about tilling the ground when he had already made vegetation spring. Now, how do we reconcile this? How do we reconcile this? Because we have let the waters be gathered under the sky, to gather them into one place and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land air, and the waters that were gathered together he called the seas. Supposedly at this moment, this is the moment where God decided to create Adam. It was at about this time. But there is a contradiction of how the earth puts forth vegetation without having anybody to till the ground. The only way that I can reconcile this, the only way that I can reconcile this is that all of this description, all of this description, it happened outside of Eden because the first chapter doesn't say anything about Eden. It does say something about the creation of humankind, but it doesn't say anything about Eden. So that's the only way that I can reconcile it. And in the 14th verse, let me see, 14th verse. It's a little bit after that. Keeps with the creation story. And it's on verse 27. On verse 26, when God first announced that he was going to create humankind, he's announcing it to somebody. He's announcing it to someone. If God comes from the word Elohim, let's understand Elohim is a plural word. So he was talking to other people, talking to other beings that were somewhat more equivalent to him. He's announcing it to somebody, to someone. Us. Let us make humankind. Talking about plural, talking to somebody. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. So created humankind, created people, created humans. How do we reconcile this? This may have happened outside of Eden, in the rest of the world. That's the only way that I can look at it. It happened outside of Eden, but before all of this happened, let's see. This was all in the sixth day. Apparently, so according to this was in the sixth day. But when we go to the second chapter, immediately in the second chapter, it says that in the seventh day God finished the work that he has to do, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. But the thing is that shortly after that, then we have to do a rewind and go back to the day the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, which is like what, the second day? When no plant of the field was yet in the earth and no herb of the field had yet sprung up. You see, this is kind of like it goes back. It goes back. It mentioned that there were no vegetation according to this. There was no vegetation, but there was but there was um, a stream, a river started coming out of the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. But this sounds like it could have been inside of Eden. And I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you something additional. This was interesting. This is kind of like a honorable mention because a lot of people talk about speculate as to the location of Eden. I don't know if anybody. That will be my guess. At some point, people have speculated about the location of the Garden of Eden, but I don't think anybody has got it right. It sounds arrogant, but have anybody has got any idea of what it was? I haven't looked into that, but I'm sure somebody has speculated about it. So we go to the moment of the creation of the first man. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed life into his nostrils, the breath of life, and the man became a living being, and the Lord God planted a Garden of Eden in the east. The, I guess this might be the only way that I can reconcile all of the description of all of this, where he put man was in the Garden of Eden, where the even though he says that the ground wasn't tilled, then it says, out of the ground the Lord God made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. So we go back to the vegetation part. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You see that here it seems like they're talking about only the Garden of Eden, not the rest of the earth. A river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes four branches. We're gonna get into the four branches in a moment because it gives a clue. At least it says something about if it existed, where the garden could have existed, where it could have been located. Now, we have to assume that this part, when the Garden of Eden is created, that was sometime between the second or the third day before this was done to the rest of the world. Let's assume that we can reconcile it, that making it more chronological, that he created the first man, and he created the Garden of Eden, where he put the first man in there and created all of the vegetation around him. And even though he was talking about there was no man that could till the ground, so Adam didn't have to till the ground, had to do agriculture basically. And for the sake of it, to give it grace, let's say that this happened, and then fast forward to the sixth day. Fast forward to the sixth day, where the rest of humankind was created. So technically, he may have been the first man, but the humankind was still created. That will answer a question that is gonna come up. That will be the third thing. So what was the first thing? Let's review. First man and first woman. That was the first thing. It's kind of like a confirmation that um let's I'm giving it phrase, kind of like going into the because at first, what I figured is that there was humankind before there was Adam and Eve um, and the Garden of Eden. But the thing is that there was humankind. We have that. Most people don't understand there were other people. We're reconciling that here. Most people that are very Christians and but I don't know. Do they read the Bible? Do they really read the Bible? Okay. Let's give it grace and say there was the Adam and Eve were the first man and the first woman, but there were other people. I'm just trying to be abundantly clear on that. Now, the second thing, we're gonna get into that, but this is a like a kind of like an honorable mention, which is something that I don't hear anybody talking about, the possible location of the Garden of Eden. The thing is that right after, right after the creation of Eden, there is the description of a river that flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides and becomes four branches. Now, this is the part that it gets a little becomes a little more interesting. It says the name of the first is Pishon. It is the one that flows around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and onyx stone are there. The second of the sec the name of the second river is Gihon. Never heard of this before. It is the one that flows around the whole land of Cush. The land of Cush. Hmm. Where have we heard that before? Land of Kush. The first time I heard the word Kush was kind of like another name for the herb for those that for those that like to smoke the herb. But if we look at the what is the land of Kush, if it is a location, an actual location. So what is the land of Kush? What is the location? Sudan, modern day Sudan, being part of ancient Nubia being south of Egypt. So there is Nile River, White Nile, and Blue Nile. Could it be one of these, the rivers that are mentioned here, the Bible? The name of the third river is Tigris, which flows east of Assyria, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. So it's telling us, where the Garden of Eden was located next to. It doesn't give it doesn't give a location, a real location, but it's telling us in the region It may have been located somewhere somewhere in East Africa, apparently, because that's where Sudan is located, land of Kush, south of Egypt. That's West Africa. East Africa. My bad. East. Yep. Yep. For those that don't want to say that it was located in Europe, and Adam and Eve were white people. Well, this says a little different. Okay. Lord took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to till it and keep it. But it already said that there was already fruit, trees and fruit. But okay. He had to do agriculture anyway. And Lord command, and the Lord commanded. The man, you may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall die. Now let's get to the part. All of this is about God forming every animal of the field and every bird of the air, even though in the first chapter and we go over that. But let's say that it was in the Garden of Eden, not the rest of the world. First chapter, let's say that it was the rest of the world. Second chapter focuses more on what happened at the Garden of Eden. Now the rest of the world is happening and it's happening in such a it's also developed and getting developed, and in the sixth day the humankind is created outside of it. That's the only thing that is gonna explain the third point. Now, second second misconception. Second misconception. We're gonna get to that. I'm taking too long. Um, the man gave names to all the cattle and the birds of the air, to every animal of the field, but for the man there was not found a helper as his partner. So the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, closed up its place with flesh, and the rib that the Lord had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. That part we know, we are more familiar with. This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called woman, for out of man this one was taken. Therefore, a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife. And they become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. Now we get to third chapter. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God say, you shall not eat from any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die. The thing is that in no way, in no point does this say that the serpent was the devil, because that's a misconception. That's a misconception. A lot of people assume, and this is an assumption because nothing here says anything about that. It just says that there was a talking snake that tricked Eve into eating from the fruit of knowledge. But what it did, what the serpent did say, you will not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The thing is that's what actually happened. That's what actually happened. So the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. The thing is that at no point does it say that this was the devil. A lot of people assume that it was the devil, but the thing is that even if it were the devil, it just told Eve the truth because she didn't die and Adam didn't die. What happened is that they opened their eyes and realized that they were naked and they covered themselves up. But they didn't die because God said that they will die if they were to eat from the fruit of knowledge. Now, it was right if meaning that they were gonna die eventually of old age, but not immediately. And I'm gonna go to the last one because after that, as we know the story that they got in trouble. They got in trouble with God, and then what happens. They get kicked out of Eden. We know that part. The pain of childbirth to Eve, Adam having to till the earth with difficulty because it wasn't on fertile ground. It was on ground that had a lot of reeds and thorns, and it was difficult to get uh, uh, nourishment out of it. And that's when they become Adam and Eve. And that's when they get their names. They don't get their names right away. Now the third one has to do with Cain. We know what happened with Cain. That was the first. That was the first born. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, "I have produced a man with the help of the Lord." But she doesn't call him a son. She doesn't say, "I have produced a son." I don't understand that. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of fruit of the ground, and above for his fat brought of the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. So both Cain and Abel made their offerings, as you know, and he approved of Abel's offerings, but not of Cain's. And we know what happened. Were you were you angry, and why your countenance is fallen? We know what happened with Cain, what he did, and how he was supposedly cursed, but not really. He had to roam the earth. Now, trying to go through the story, you know the story. That's not what I'm talking about. Now we can go to after after he gets his punishment. My punishment is greater than I can bear. Today you have driven me away from the soil, and I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a wandering on the earth, and anyone who meets me may kill me. Now, most people do believe it was Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and that was it, because they were the first man. It was first man, first woman, and first born and second born, and supposedly that was nobody else. So why will Cain say this? Anyone who meets me may kill me, because that's what I was reconciling. What we saw in the first chapter, that the earth had people already. The earth already had people. That's why down here we see Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. See what I'm saying? Because I remember, quick short story. When I was a kid, there were, I think it was the Jehovah Witnesses, and they were selling this little book, this little yellow book of biblical stories. I was a little kid, and they were offering it. I said, okay, I'll read it. I got the book. I read the whole thing in a couple of days. Interesting, because it is kind of like a book that is written specifically for kids. I was a kid, and it was an easy read for me. And I remember very well I remember very well that when it came to the to what happened with Cain and Abel, that book said that when he was told to wander the earth, that the way that that book explained it when it came to Cain's wife was that he took with him one of his sisters that have never been mentioned before, and it's not mentioned here. It's not mentioned here because Adam and Eve do have another son. I don't recall. They don't get. They don't have a daughter. Not that I recall. Uh, you see, if you can see here, there is Cain, Abel, and Seth. There was Seth. I understand that that was another son. But that book that I read said that um that Cain took one of his sisters with him. Then that was explanation because they they couldn't see it as there having been other people. But if we go to the first chapter, as we saw, that there was people in the earth. Yes, technically, Adam and Eve may have been the first man and woman. They may have been created between the second and third days, but by the 6 days, there were more people. There were more people around. That's the best way that I can reconcile it. So I'm not invalidated the either the first or the second chapter. I'm giving them grace and taking it as both may have been valid. So I don't want to make this video too long. Um, this is gonna be a little late when it comes out, but let me know what you think. Agree? Disagree? Have a criticism? Let me know. This is Introvert Boricua with a not so short video. Let me know what you think about it. Until next time, peace.